I know some of you don't know my mom, and those who knew her very well are not with us anymore. I will try my best to depict the most important milestones of her life with the hope that you can get a glimpse of who this incredible woman was and how she shaped not just my life, but many others that came across her path. My mother was born in Tashkent, which is in Uzbekistan, in July of 1927. That was a very tumultuous time in that region. When she was 2 years old, their family had to immigrate to Iran so they won't lose everything they had worked for. My mom's father had 4 brothers, and my mom would always tell everyone about their family. Because of the political climate in Tashkent, the 4 brothers decided to divide everything they owned into 2 parts and move to Iran separately. The oldest brother, Mezami, which means older uncle, and the youngest brother, Sasha, moved together, and they used their own last name, Martirosyan, to enter Iran. But the second eldest brother, Simon, who's my grandfather, and Sarkis went together, and they used totally a different last name, Baldasaryan. This was always very confusing for us kids, but later on, we understood it was done to protect their wealth and safety. They were prominent business merchants, and they very quickly got themselves settled in Qazvin, which is north of Iran, close to Caspian Sea. My mom was the last person alive from this picture. This marks the end of an era. The 4 brothers got back together in Qazvin and bought a communal style home for their families. Each family had 1 room to live in, and common area, kitchen, and dining room was shared by everyone. My mother was very proud of the fact that they never saw any of the uncles fight, and the wives had a clear pecking order. The eldest uncle's wife ran the show, and everyone respected and honored her. They had a big yard for the kids to play, and all the neighboring kids also played there too. Mom had only one biological brother, Eddie, who later on developed schizophrenia. However, she was much closer to cousin Rafiq, who was her age, and Bella, who is Rafiq's biological sister, same age as Eddie. Uncle Rafiq got married and moved to San Francisco very early on, but he would come and visit us in Iran very frequently. I remember when we were told that he was coming, there would be a big celebration and preparation. Uncle Rafiq married with Elise, and they had their two daughters, Evo and Isa, in Iran. Rafiq is survived by his eldest daughter, Evo, and two grandchildren, Alex and Natalie. When Bella was born, her mother passed away, and my grandmother was already breastfeeding her son, so she started carrying and feeding her as well. Bella was 5 years old, five years younger than my mom, so she felt like it was her job to protect her as an older sister. Bella moved to Spain eventually, but she too came to visit us occasionally, and I always looked forward to it since she would bring her three daughters, Annabella, Maria, and Eva, who were close to my age, and I loved playing with them. Let's now move on to the next phase of her life. My mom had a high school degree and did not go to college, but she was very sharp and smart to recognize that my dad was a good match for her. There were not many guys back then that could handle a strong woman like her. We have not been able to find a wedding picture, but we do have the original engagement and wedding cards. It's worthy noting that in our culture, the bride's family hosts the engagement party and the groom's family pays for the wedding. Let me now tell you a little bit about my dad. He was a gentle soul and loved my mother and would give her complete freedom to run the house any way she sees fit. There was mutual respect between them. However, my mom knew how to save face and always would make it look like it was dad making the decisions. But in fact, everything was her will, and she knew how to convince him. We spent a lot of time with my dad's family. My mom got along with everyone, even with those who were not so easy to get along with. This picture was taken at Janet and Levon Mirzayan's wedding, and I was their flower girl. The color picture on the left is from their engagement. And back then, not many people would do a color picture. But pictures were very important to my mom, and we always saw their family photos in our house. I also want to talk about the picture with the gown. The dress was handmade by my mom for a costume party. The flowers were all beans of different kinds, like white beans and kidney beans. I was told she won the first prize for making that dress. Their life was full of challenges and not all happy moments, but not even a single moment do I remember any crying and complaining going on in the house. My dad would grab his daff, which is what you see in the picture, and I would jump up and start dancing. My mother had a beautiful voice, and everyone would ask her to sing. But she would always say, "Oh, me, I can't sing. I don't know the words." or some kind of an excuse, but once you insisted, she will sing beautifully. One of my mom's uncles moved to Bandar Pahlavi, aka Bandar Anzali, which is one of the most important cities in Iran. The city was home to the first and biggest port on the southern shore of the Caspian Sea. My parents very frequently would put us kids in the car and drive up north to visit her uncle. I have such fond memories of these trips. They also liked to go to the mountains to play in the snow. In the far right pictures, you see my cousin Albert's mom, dad, and sister with my mom doing a sleigh ride. My mom and dad eventually moved from Qazvin to Tehran. And the story I heard about their move showed the guts and strength she had to pick up her young son, Varush, and move to a big city alone. And then my dad followed. They lived happily in Tehran in a neighborhood called Bahar, where I was born. Christening was very important to them. And we have lots of pictures and even videos from our christening. They looked for any excuse to get the family together. Our place was always open to guests. My older brother Varuj now lives in Iran. He developed schizophrenia early on, and mom took care of him. In 2006, we noticed that mom's Alzheimer was getting worse, and she couldn't care for him anymore. So we had to move her to America against her will. My older brother was very reserved, but Arman was extremely active growing up with lots of friends. Arman was not good in academic studies, especially in high school. However, he used to fix or design most incredible things with electronics. He was always the go-to person to repair anything that needed repair. Mom believed in him and knew that one day he's going to be an inventor and do incredible things. However, if you don't get accepted into the university in Iran, you don't have any chance of advancement. So she decided to send him to USA to study electronics. By luck, he ended up in Boston, going to college and graduated from UMass Amherst with a degree in computer science. Mom was right. He has many patents under his name and recently turned an old Triumph into an electric car. None of this would have been possible if mom didn't let go of her son. I was the youngest in the family. When I wanted to leave Iran in 1978, the revolution had started. I was a senior in high school. The story of how I managed to leave the country is long, but the short of it is, if it wasn't for my mom, I would not be in this country. She trusted and believed in me. At the same time, she challenged me appropriately to run around in midst of a revolution and get my own passport and get a visa from American Embassy, and then she will take care of the rest. She said, if you think you can survive in a strange country, then you have to do all this by yourself to show me that you're ready. Mom loved her grandchildren. Rafi was born first, then followed by Marcel 2 years later. She would engage with the kids at their own level, playing with the sword or cards, whatever they wanted to do. She pained to see us struggle with my son Rafi, but she would never show it and was always supportive and never blamed anyone. As I mentioned before, we had to move mom to the States against her will, but that was necessary for her health and safety. I remember in the airplane on the long flight from Iran to LA, she looked around to all the people and said, "What are we going to feed all these people who came to visit us?" I said, "I have arranged for food to be served. Don't worry." For 15 years, we had Mom with us, and we had many wonderful occasions, birthdays, Mother's Day, and many more. She enjoyed spending time with friends and family. Having coffee with Kristanti and Emma Mokur was very special to her. The picture on the bottom right is one of my favorite pictures. We very often went to my cousin Albert and Anahit's house for dinner. Mom would always light up when she saw Albert's sister Bella. They had shared a lot together in the past and always enjoyed each other's company. We knew our time with her was short, so we decided to celebrate her 80th birthday while she could still remember everyone. All of our close family and friends came to celebrate with us. She was so surprised to see the big cake we got for her. I will never forget the expression on her face. It was one of the best memories that we all have from her. It's difficult to mention every single person who has touched Mom and has been touched by her. I will remiss if I don't mention Nune, who has taken care of Mom for the last 10 years. We are grateful for what she has done and consider her as part of our family. Mom moved into her condo in Glendale about 10 years ago and would look forward to Armand coming from San Jose and playing guitar with his best friend, Ara. She could sit there for hours listening to them. Last but not least, our close family friend, Emush and Khachik, who had been next to my mom when she was alone in Tehran and didn't have any support. Their daughter Linda and her family were instrumental in helping me get Mom out of the country safely to America. When Emush and Khachik finally moved to America, their son Levik and I had the pleasure of taking them around, and one day we decided to take them to see an old Russian submarine. I will never forget how they both wanted to go see everything, even though they had dementia by that time, but still had not lost their spunk. Let's now listen to an Armenian poem that is about Hands of a Mother by Baruch Seva, Mor Zerkere.
Mor Zerkere. Այս ձերքերը, մոր ձերքերը, հինավուրց ու նոր ձերքերը, ինչեր ասես, որ չեն արել այս ձերքերը, պսակվելիս ոնց են բարել այս ձերքերը, ինչ նազանքով, երազանքով, ինչեր ասես, որ չեն արել այս ձերքերը, լույսը մինչև լույս չեն մարել այս ձերքերը, Առաջնեկն է, երբ որ ծնվել, նրա արդար կաթով սնվել, Ինչեր ասես, որ չեն արել այս ձերքերը, Զրկանք կրել, հոգս են տարել այս ձերքերը, Ծով լռությամբ, համբերությամբ, Ինչեր ասես, որ չեն արել այս ձերքերը, Երկինք պարզված սյուն են դարել այս ձերքերը, Որ չփլվի իր տան սյունը, Որդին կռվից դառնա տունը, Ինչեր ասես, որ չեն արել այս ձերքերը, Մինչև տատի ձերք են դարել այս ձերքերը, Այս ձերքերը ուժը հատած, Բայց թորհանետ նոր ուժ գտած, Քար են շրջել, սար են շարժել այս ձերքերը, Ինչեր, ինչեր, ինչեր չարժեն այս ձերքերը, Նուրբ ձերքերը, սուրբ ձեռքերը։ Եկեք այսօր մենք համբուրենք որդիաբար, մեզ աշխարհում ծնած, մեզ աշխարհում շահած, պահած, մեզնից երբեք չկշտացած, փոշի սրբող, լվաց կանող, անverջ դատող, անverջ բանող այս ձեռքերը, թող որ ճաքած ու կոշտացած, բայց մեզ համար մետաքսի պես խաս ձեռքերը, մոր ձեռքերը։ Մոր ձեռքերը։
Now, I would like to turn it over to Armand to say a couple of words. Armand, please turn on your video.
I think my video is on. There we go.
Okay, we can see you. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Hello, everyone. Hilda described our family and our mom's life very well. Mom was 20 years old when she married and left her family home to live with our dad's family. She was faced with a major challenge fitting in a new family with a strong patriarch. Our dad's father was ordering her around and she would not take that at all. World War II had ended, Americans were in the capital city, Tehran, and social fabric was changing very rapidly from large families to nuclear families. Although both sides of our family were rich, Dad did not have a permanent job or wealth of his own. Mom forced him to leave the family home in Ghazvin, and they went to Tehran. Dad's older brother, Andranik, helped them settle in Tehran. Andranik also helped him find a job with American construction companies that were growing in numbers very quickly. In addition to changing many aspects of social life in Iran, American companies were building the highway infrastructure, which was poor or non-existent at the time. Dad learned the trade very quickly and became very popular among the American civil engineering companies. Working with American companies, they were exposed to American lifestyle, going to their company parties and associating with American expats gave them a window into American life. They were sold on the concept and wanted to move to US. Mom and Dad applied and had their US immigrant visa approved in 1959. Life, however, had a much more difficult plan for them. Mom's dad passed away a few years after she married, and she had to take care of her mom and brother. Life became more and more difficult with illnesses in her family, and when her cousins left to Europe and US, she was left the only person caring for the older generation that was sick and needed care at their old age. So they could not leave and get to their dream of living in US. She helped her family members one by one until they all passed away, always with a smile on her face. Although she loved to live in US so much, the only time we were able to bring her to US, as Hilda said, was when she was faced with an Alzheimer's disease taking over her brain. She lived to be 94 years old. Thanks to Nune for taking incredible care of her 24/7 for her last 13 years, and Hilda for taking care of every need during all the time she was here or in Tehran. She lived to be 90 years old, never complained or was combative even during an Alzheimer period that was robbing her of her most precious memories. Always with a smile. We loved her, and she made us who we are. She lived a very difficult life, but always with a smile. She loved music and had a beautiful voice. In the following clip, she's singing the soldier's song in Armenian. She had lost most of her memory by this time, but remembered the lyrics magically. Thank you to Hilda for bringing us together and preparing this event. Thank you all for spending time listening to her story. And here's Mom.
Tinçeret navagyanı tırçeyi
Karkaçu versareru Desteği aynaru Karoto vesalu Dura veriga Rucerero Vararu Karkaçu versareru Lideyi handeru Verkalaç var geru Desteği aynaru Karoto viesalu Dura verigaru Cerero Vararu Karkaçu versareru Lideyi hazeru Berkalaç var geru Ravet vigaru Cerero Vararu Karkaçu versareru
Ahimar
Ahi var tagaki Tu gagav yeskargir Kıspo bevgir Gagav kesukarskir Agut tagaki Kaserve kesikarskir Vararu Hovderis vishtapyuru Hayreri kipsırtu Teçögrev yesmartu Ahimar tangaki Tu gagav yeskarki Kıspo peko Hogir hapyuro Sırtayı Kaserve kesip kırtskı
Let's have a moment of silence in her honor.